Happy Valentine's Day.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Again. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jamie Lynn Hancock, and I'm MAD Canada's National President. I'm so pleased to welcome you to the 2023 National Conference for Victims of Impaired Driving. It is an honor and a privilege to be a part of this wonderful organization, along with thousands of victims, survivors, volunteers, and members across the country. On behalf of the National Board of Directors and the national staff, we would also like to send out a special welcome to those joining us via our live stream. MAD Canada wishes to acknowledge the ancestral traditional territories of the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe, and in particular, the Mississaugas of the New Credit, whose territory we are gathering on today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. Before we get settled, we have reserved chairs by the door for people who may need to get up and leave the room at some point. Some of us may find it painful to sit for too long, so we have reserved those chairs just for you. So you can leave whenever you need without worrying about disturbing anyone. The National Conference for Victims of Impaired Driving is MAD Canada's most important annual event. Everyone in this room has had their lives tragically impacted by impaired driving. Our stories and journeys are different, but our lives are forever changed. Whether we have suffered the loss of a loved one or sustained injuries, we are here together this weekend for support, compassion, understanding, and fellowship. We understand how hard it can be to walk through that door. I was in the lobby a few hours ago and saw many nervous faces, people wondering what they've gotten themselves into, and maybe wondering if it's not too late to turn around. I understand how you feel. I too remember walking through those same doors for the first time. And I also remember how I felt when I left. I felt like I was not alone. I felt like there were others who understood me. I came here after my family lost my brother DJ. He was killed by in 2014 by an impaired driver. Losing DJ hurt like nothing I had ever experienced before, and I still think about him every single day. I know how important it is to my family to honor him, and that's why we at MAD Canada want to make sure we also honor all of your loved ones. I want each of you to know that I'm standing beside you, that MAD Canada stands beside you. Learning to live without DJ is still a daily struggle for my family. His absence is felt at every family event. His loss was so senseless. But what feels right to me is my work with MAD Canada. By telling DJ's story and by sharing MAD Canada's message, I feel like I can help another family avoid the pain and grief that so many of us have felt. I want each of you to know you're not alone. You're in a safe place where you're free to grieve without judgment. We will find comfort in each other. We will cry together. We will support each other, hold each other tight, and cherish and honor our memories. Together, we will find the strength to survive, even if it's only 1 minute at a time. As is the tradition, we will begin this weekend's journey together by lighting a candle. And as I light this candle, let's take a moment to reflect on why we are here this weekend and remember all victims and survivors of impaired driving. Please stand if you're able as we can observe a moment of silence. Thank you. You can be seated. This weekend, we will pay tribute to those who have lost their lives. We can celebrate the good times we had with them, as well as mourn their loss. For those who have been injured in an impaired driving crash, and to those who support these survivors, we're also so grateful that you're here. We know that you too have received a lifelong sentence as a result of impaired driving. We know that our lives will never be the same, but one day, in time, there will be a new normal. And I can tell you, we will laugh and smile again. For many of you, this is your first time attending our national conference. And we know from what first-time attendees have told us in the past that it can all be a bit of a blur. Most of what you need to know is in your program, so keep that with you throughout the weekend. Once our opening session tonight is done, we welcome you to go to the social center if you wish. It's just down the hall or on the other side of the IFL front desk where you would have checked in. There you can relax and enjoy some refreshments. The pool will also be open tonight until 9 p.m. During our conference, there's no alcohol served, but the bar is stocked with lots of non-alcoholic options. With the exception of the delicious dinner we just had, all of our meals will be in the dining hall, which is just at the top of the stairs across from this room. There's also an elevator located just behind the stairway. Breakfast on both days is available from 6:30 onwards. Our families last year had asked for more opportunities to gather with those they met at reflection sessions. We are pleased to have set up reflection session tables at breakfast for those who wish to continue meeting and talking with one another. The tables are marked with table cards by session types. We will be back in this room tomorrow morning at 8:30 for a very informative keynote address from Corey Sirota, who will speak about the myths of grief and loss. For those of you staying at the Marriott Hotel, there will be a shuttle back and forth throughout the weekend. We have put the shuttle information on the display boards beside the registration desk. Throughout the weekend, you will see people wearing yellow ribbons. These are trained victim services volunteers, also known as VSVs. I'll ask our VSVs to stand now, so it might be a little easier for all of you to identify them. Thank you. So these folks, along with members of the National Board of Directors and national staff, are available to assist everyone, whether you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or if you have questions about anything going on at the conference. If you find at any point in the weekend you need to have some quiet time, we do have a quiet reflection room in the back of the social center, and you can go there anytime. One of our VSVs will be around if you want to talk, or you can just be alone. We are live streaming parts of the conference again this year. We will be showing tonight's session, tomorrow morning's keynote, and Sunday's session, all in this room. For those in attendance, please be assured that the cameras will always be at the back of the room and your faces will not be shown. If you ask a question, however, your voice may be heard. We will also be live streaming the candlelight vigil, so if you sent in a photo, those viewing online will be able to see it. If you have concerns or questions, please see the staff at the registration desk. You can also take some time to visit the exhibits in the bow. We have MAD Canada's traveling memorial wall and victim survivor story banners and other exhibits, which you've probably noticed today. I would just like to take a moment to introduce you as well to our MAD Canada Board of Directors and our national staff. If I could ask the board and staff members to stand so that people can identify you. Thank you. We're very grateful for the wealth of knowledge and diversity of backgrounds that our volunteer board of directors brings to the board table. Our staff too bring great experience and a variety of backgrounds to the work they do with victims and survivors and with our chapters and community leaders. Many members of the national board and the national staff are here all weekend and would love to meet you. And of course, if you have any questions or need anything, please let one of them know. And now I'd like to introduce Steve Sullivan, MAD Canada's Chief Executive Officer, who has two special presentations to deliver, and then will facilitate tonight's keynote session.
Thanks, Jamie Lynn. So we're going to do our panel in a few moments, but as Jamie Lynn mentioned, we wanted to recognize some pretty special people before we do that. Every year, MAD Canada awards a leadership bursary named in memory of our dear friend and colleague, Louise Twerty. Some of you may have known Louise, but we lost Louise to cancer on October 11th, 2014 at the age of 47. Louise was a passionate voice for victims and survivors of impaired driving and a powerful leader who helped advance legislative changes that improved impaired driving laws, police enforcement powers, and judicial systems. She came to MAD Canada after her 16-year-old son, Mike Knox, was killed by an impaired driver in 1999. In the years following Mike's death, both Louise and her other son, Eric, were injured in separate impaired driving crashes. In 2000, Louise led the establishment of the MAD St. Paul chapter in Alberta, and in 2001, she became our national president. After her term as president, Louise took on the role of MAD Canada's chapter services manager for the Western region. She supported existing chapters, community leaders, built MAD Canada's presence in new communities, and promoted legislative and enforcement initiatives. Most importantly, I know to Louise, she ensured that victims and survivors of impaired driving received the support that they needed. She was a dear friend to many in our MAD Canada family, and she's still greatly missed. In her honor, MAD Canada established Louise Joanne Twerty Leadership Bursary. This $10,000 bursary is awarded to one student each year who aspires to the same leadership, dedication, and compassion that Louise demonstrated throughout her lifetime. The bursary is open to Canadian citizens who have been severely injured or who've had a parent, legal guardian, or sibling killed or severely injured in an impaired driving crash, and who are enrolled in full-time ministry-approved post-secondary educational program. We've had some truly exceptional and inspirational people receive this bursary, including our president, Jamie Lynn Hancock. And our most recent recipient is no exception. We actually normally announce this at our September conference, but unfortunately last year our recipient wasn't able to join us, and he's here tonight, so we wanted to make sure that we recognize them. And so I'm pleased to announce the recipient of our 2022 Louise Joanne Torty Leadership Bursary is Cohen Poirier from Nova Scotia. So Cohen lost his brother James to an impaired driver on October 23rd, 2015. And when James was killed, Cohen enrolled in the Bachelor of Engineering program at Dalhousie University. While dealing with his grief, he decided to finish his program, and he's now pursuing a Bachelor of Education program at Mount St. Vincent University, and is looking forward to positively influencing the lives of youth in his community as a teacher. He also has volunteered with at-risk youth, sharing James' story, which has helped keep his brother's memory alive and possibly even save lives. I have had the pleasure as my time with Matt and being a part of the awarding of the bursary. I see all the applications that come in, all exceptional young people. Sometimes some years you review all the applications and you just kind of have a sense of one that maybe stands out, just because of the way it's written or the way that the student has communicated. I saw that with Jamie Lynn's, and I saw that with Cohen's, an exceptional young man. So I just would hope you will join me in welcoming Cohen Poirier up to the stage. You don't have to, it's up to you. Okay, so I'll use it later. Okay, thank you. Do you want to get a shot later? Do you want to get a photo with your mom? I should also mention that last year, MAD Canada awarded 9 other bursaries to students across the country whose lives were impacted by impaired driving. It's one of the most important programs that we have. So our second award is for our 2023 Citizen of Distinction Award, and it's an incredible honor to be able to award that. This award recognizes individuals and companies who have had a major contribution to the anti-impaired driving movement in Canada and have left a lasting legacy. And we are so honored this year to present this year's Citizen of Distinction Award to Carolyn and Richard Swinson. Carolyn and her late husband, Richard, joined MAD Canada after the death of their son, Rob, in an alcohol-related crash in 1993. 12 years earlier, Carolyn's father had also been killed by an impaired driver. Richard and Carolyn were committed to ensuring that Rob's memory lived on forever in the lives of those who had been saved through their efforts to prevent impaired driving. They channeled their personal tragedy into positive force for MAD Canada and our mission. For many years, Carolyn and Richard hosted a workshop at the National Conference for Victims to talk about how a family changes after the loss of a child. Carolyn has served as president and co-president of the MAD Toronto chapter, as the national president of MAD Canada from 1999 to 2001, and as chair of the National Board of Directors from 2007 to 2010. And she's also served on the Board of Directors as director for the Ontario East region. When I sat down at the table, Carolyn introduced me as the CEO to her family, and I said, we all know that Carolyn's the CEO of MAD Canada. She has volunteered with MAD Canada for nearly 30 years. She's delivered presentations to students, has been a powerful media spokesperson, has met with elected officials to encourage the adoption of stronger impaired driving laws, and so much, much more. But I know Carolyn best through her work with victims and survivors. And that's, I think, the most inspiring element of the work that she's done for our organization. She provides direct support to countless families, has provided, is providing, and will continue to provide, knowing Carolyn. People who've been impacted by impaired driving, helping them through the grief and the bereavement process, supporting those who've been injured, who are going through the criminal justice system. She ensures that victims have a voice throughout that legal process, sometimes forcefully ensuring they have a voice through that process. She helps them during the trial and court proceedings, and I know there's people in this room who benefited from Carolyn's support. She attends the meeting with Crown representatives and police and helps them compile their victim impact statements. In 2022, Carolyn was involved in the development of MAD Canada's first community impact statement for the sentencing of an impaired driver. Richard served on the MAD Canada's National Board of Directors, including a term as chair from 1995 to 2001. We at MAD Canada knew Richard as an early leader in the anti-impaired driving movement and as a former board chair, as a supporter of all the amazing work that Carolyn has done. But I also want to take a moment to recognize his remarkable professional life as a world-renowned psychiatrist. He was one of the foremost physicians in his field. He mentored numerous new psychiatrists and psychologists. He was professor emeritus and former chair of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neurosciences Research at McMaster University. He served as department chair and psychiatrist in chief at St. Joseph's Healthcare in Hamilton from 1997 to 2006. He was instrumental in the creation of the Anxiety Treatment and Research Center there and served as its medical director from 1998 to 2017. He was awarded an inaugural Distinguished Fellowship of the Canadian Psychiatric Association in 2006 and was made a Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association in 2017. He published more than 200 peer-reviewed papers, 30 book chapters, and 10 books. He also chaired the steering committee for the Canadian Anxiety Treatment Guidelines Initiative. Following Richard's passing earlier this year, his beloved family was joined by his friends, colleagues, and members of his MAD Canada family, and more than once and by multiple people, Richard was described as a gentleman and a gentle man. He will be missed by all. I didn't know Richard as well as I have gotten to know Carolyn, but I do recall one of my first conferences hearing their presentation at a conference like this. And I was struck by his grace and compassion, even for the person who had taken Rob's life. And I just was amazed at the way he was able to communicate and find a connection with everybody in that room. Words cannot express the appreciation we have for their service, their loyalty, and their dedication to our organization and our mission. And on behalf of the whole MAD Canada family, I want to welcome Carolyn Swinson to accept this award in honor of her and Richard. Did you want to say a few?
Yes, I would.
Oh, hold on.
Thank you. This is a bittersweet moment for myself and my family. Because as Steve said, my husband passed away on February the 21st of this year, and he would have been extremely honored to be here this evening and to receive this award. My husband was an incredible person. At his funeral, there were so many people that came to me afterwards and said, we only knew Richard as Richard. We didn't really know all the things that he'd done in his life because he was that kind of person. He was very humble. He had an amazing career. He did many firsts in this country. He was the first person to set up an anxiety disorders clinic. He was the first person to bring in the fact that you could treat people over the, by telephone or by distance. And he had many firsts in his career. And he's greatly missed. But the one thing that was the most important thing that my husband said, that everybody who knew him said that if you knew Richard, you knew his family. Because he said this family was the most important thing in his life. And so everybody who he spoke to, they knew what the family was up to. They knew what his children were doing. They knew what his grandchildren were doing. And they were just such a joy to his life. And I'm very touched. My daughter is here this evening and my two grandchildren are here this evening. And I'm sorry, my other son lives in California and his granddaughter is there and they can't be here this evening. So I know that Richard would be very touched by this award this evening. And as usual, he would be as his very humble self. And so we appreciate it. And as a family, we thank you. MAD has been our second family for close to 30 years now. And we are grateful that this organization has been here for us. And we thank you. Thank you.
And Carolyn, I don't know if you know this, but some of you will know Mad Canada lost our longtime CEO last year. And he worked very closely, Andy Murray worked very, very closely with Carolyn and obviously knew Richard very well. And we found out, I think late last year, earlier this year, that one of Andy's wishes was that as CEO, he would have been able to honor Richard and Carolyn. And so this is very much coming from Andy.
One of the things that I was going to say, that I realized that Andy had a lot to do this before, and I was going to say, Andy, if you brought the tell Richard for me.
Okay, can I ask our keynote panel members to join me on stage? Hopefully you all know who you are. There are you. Roll the stairs. No. So this is a bit of a tradition we started a number of years ago, where we wanted to have people who had lived experience, who had different experiences, who had different journeys, who had maybe been a little farther along in their journey than some of you who are here for your first or maybe second time, to share their experiences and their journeys that maybe you might pick up something from that helps you in your own journey. And it's become, I think, one of the highlights of the conference. That's what the feedback we get every year. It's one of the things that I look forward to the most about the weekend. And this year we have, as we do every year, some amazing people who are going to share their stories and experience with you. I think what I normally do is I just ask everybody to start by telling their own story. It's their story. I think they should tell it as much or as little as they want about their experience. And then I have a list of questions that we'll go through. I may not get to all the questions. I may not have each question for everybody, but it's really more of a discussion. And then based on, I know all of these people, some questions for each one of them individually as well. So maybe since Alyssa, you're here, maybe why don't we ask you to start with your story.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. My story starts about 5 years ago. I was 17 years old when my dad, uncle, and I were driving from Alberta to British Columbia, and an oncoming vehicle crossed the center line of the highway and hit our vehicle head on. My uncle was driving and he died upon impact. My dad died about 5 minutes after, before EMS could get there, and I was conscious in the back seat. I was injured. I suffered numerous injuries, including a mild traumatic brain injury, cervical, spinal, soft tissue injuries. I had tearing in my left knee, the ligament tearings, as well as fractures in my left arm. But I'm very grateful to have been able to heal from most of the injuries.
Thanks, Alyssa. Cohen?
Yeah, so my story begins, I guess, October 23rd, 2015, when my brother James, Daniel Poirier, was killed in a impaired driving accident. He got into a car with a friend of his and an acquaintance that he never really, spent much time with. I don't think he knew that he was under the influence. And they crashed just in front of my aunt's house. And James was ejected from the vehicle and died shortly after he impacted the ground. So yeah, the story, I guess my story, you know, it's still being written. I mean, this is still a journey it's something that I deal with every day. I have James's picture on my mantle, on my dresser. I see his face every morning as I get ready for the day. And like when that happened, when I heard the news, my compass in life was just flipped upside down. All my goals and dreams and visions were completely changed and are still changing. And I remember coming to the conference in 2016 after James passed away. This was very recent, very fresh still. And I had my walls up kind of throughout the whole weekend. It wasn't really until the last day that I was able to kind of connect with some people here. And that experience really impacted me. So everyone who's a first timer here, hopefully you get to that point this weekend as well.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Tuffelmeyer. Our story started on Easter Monday of 2016, March 28th. My husband and our youngest daughter was coming back from a family gathering up in Northern Ontario. And my daughter was driving the car, and a driver came across and impacted head on, more on the right side of the car, killed my husband instantly, and left my daughter pretty much almost dead. She was not expected to survive. I'm happy to say that she's my little miracle. She was just shy of 20 at the time, so she just turned 27. She had a severe brain injury, as well as a broken femur, broken arms, broken fingers, broken ankle. Screws had to be put in her pelvis. She had to have craniotomy. She didn't start speaking until 2 years after the crash. She didn't eat for 3 years after the crash. She finally came home. It will be 4 years in October. She's been home with me. She is pushing every single day to continue her life because, as she said, our lives just got torn apart. She is now trying to walk. She is in what's called a pacer. And I just got a text this afternoon that said, and her rehab this afternoon, she walked 4 blocks in a pacer with only a 2 minute standing rest. This young lady is just my miracle, because without her, we do have an older daughter too, but without her, I couldn't have lost both of them.
Nice, Cheryl. And Cheryl, we used to have the Med chapter used to have a support group, in-person support group, obviously with COVID that interacted that, but I know Danica came to one of the meetings, and Cheryl would often send us videos of her progress, and it's really something to see how far she's come, and to hear how far she's come since then. It's just amazing. Dean and Kim.
So our journey started August 21st, 2014, was about 11:30 at night. Our son did survive, so he actually passed away August 22nd. He was alive for an hour in his car, pinned in his car. He was returning from a hockey tryout and coming home on a highway, and the driver crossed the center line. And we were about 4 cars behind him. So traffic stopped, and of course my husband got out of the car and he said, "Stay in the car, Kim," but I just knew deep in my heart that it was DJ, you know. So my automatic thing was to text him and say, "Are you okay?" And of course I didn't get a response, but so after I kind of, I guess, realized I knew it was him, I just got out of the car, and Dean went to the car, and couldn't get him out because basically the engine was on top of him. So, and I mean, if we would have been the car behind him, which we should have been, Dean actually stopped to go to the washroom. That's why we weren't behind him. And I said to Dean, I said, what are you doing? He said, I have to go to the bathroom. I said, we just left the arena. He said, I gotta go. So we stopped for that 2 minutes or whatever. But had we been behind him, I probably wouldn't be here today neither, because the truck behind DJ, something went through his passenger window, and we were in the same type of a truck. So, you know, when it happened, of course, you think, I want to be in his spot. I didn't even want to be here. But I mean, you know, 9 years later, I'm still here, and we're surviving. You know, it's our new normal. Mad has been wonderful. Our daughter Jamie has been our rock for 9 years, I have to say. Am I missing anything, Dean?
No,
No.
she's making it easy for me.
I'm about to make it tougher for you, Dean. No, I just, in case you haven't made the connection, obviously Jamie Lynn is Dean and Kim's daughter. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, you guys walked in the door how many years ago for the first time?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit earlier, Dean, about the journey, and here you are, your daughter is the president. Maybe talk a little bit about the first time you came. And
Yeah, the first time I came here was kind of a blur. You know, second year was a little bit better, and just the people I've met and connected with over the years, like I haven't been here for about 5 years. And so coming tonight and seeing the people that I did connect with years ago, it was really nice. And it almost seems like family, you know, when you see them again. And I don't know, it's still tough every day, as all of us know. You just gotta keep on trucking, and yeah, and we're so proud of our daughter and what she's done and kept everything going. And I don't know, I'm not much of a talker, so I'll let Kim take over.
Yeah, no, Matt has been like a family, and the thing that sticks out for me, I think, from our very first meeting, one of the speakers, and I don't know, Steve, if it was you, but anyway, somebody said, we're all Martians. And that's exactly what you feel like the first year you come. You think nobody, you know, like I remember walking into a restaurant after DJ at a family function, Jamie's birthday, whatever it might have been. And you walk in and, you know, everybody just kind of looks at you to see if you're going to cry or if you're okay or whatever. You feel like a Martian. So, you know, that really stuck with me when whoever said it at one of our first meetings, because that's exactly what you feel like. You feel like a Martian, you know, like everybody's waiting and thinking and doesn't know what to say. There's no right words, you know, just we had so much family support. We were very lucky. We have great parents and great families and a lot of great friends. And the support we had at the beginning was unbelievable, you know. So we hold on to that, you know. And like I say, Matt has helped us through this 9 years. Lots.
thank you.
Great.
In terms of a journey, Alyssa, I mean, obviously you lost your dad and your uncle, but you suffered, as you said, a lot of injuries. I think given the injuries you told us, people might be surprised about what it is that you're studying. Maybe tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yes, so I just graduated with my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Performance Dance. So prior to the crash, I was a high-level, high-performance elite dancer. And after the crash, dance was really what grounded me and what gave me that like wanting and willingness to continue. So yeah, despite the injuries, it was about 4 months off completely from my training. And then I slowly built my way back into it and was able to complete a 4-year conservatory program in dance performance. But I think for me, what it really was after the crash, like we were saying, feeling like a Martian or an alien, especially being 17. I mean, all my friends, 16, 17, no one could relate to having lost a parent. So it was very much, I went back to high school, back into my grade 12 class, and everyone was kind of like unsure of what to say or if they should say anything or what they could say because no one had experienced anything of that nature. But I found at dance, it was such a supportive group of people I was around. I had my friends, but I also had my teachers and my mentors. And just that being in that studio, in that space, even when I wasn't able to dance, I was still a part of a team and a part of something that felt greater. So yeah, I think for me, my journey was very dependent on having dance as something I could do that had nothing to do having dance be something that was separate from the craft and something that also remained consistent. So it was something I did before and something I could keep after. And it just kept some consistency in my life, which I think was really beneficial. Just when everything else felt like it was kind of in haywire and all tangled up, I still had this one thing that I could go to, and all that mattered was dance. I didn't have to worry about anything else going on because kind of what we always say is when you go into the studio, you leave everything at the door. And I really found that quite helpful.
Great, thanks. Yeah. So Cohen, were there things along the way or people that helped you in your journey? Obviously, Alyssa had dance, but I know the program you were in required a lot of the engineering stuff, required a lot of studies, but were there other things that helped you along your way?
Certainly. My family being the biggest support, I think. My sister is 10 years older than me. She's like a second mom. She immediately after the crash actually started a basketball tournament in James's honor. Basketball was his favorite sport, and that would be my equivalent of dance. For you, I guess it's kind of my escape. What grounds me, what keeps me connected to James is that I play basketball every week with my friends. Yeah, she's just been incredible. Starting the James Daniel Poirier Memorial funds to different charitable organizations to create a bursary to get his honor. Just watching her deal with her grief and have her as a support to deal with mine. Yeah, there's no something the most to this. Yeah.
Good. And Cheryl, obviously, you're grieving the loss of your husband and you're caring for Danica. It's been a couple of years now, 7 years. Obviously, Danica's progress has been phenomenal, but, looking back, what maybe helped you get through those very difficult times?
My first thing would be my faith. We believed that God was in the center of this because there was things that should have happened that didn't, and things that were put in our place that we just cannot explain. The other thing is that the initial, actually that very night, so I was 6 hours away from where the crash happened. My brother drove us down. So my oldest daughter and I were supposed to come back the next day. It was my mother's birthday the next day. He drove us down, and it was like midnight when we walked into the civic campus in Ottawa. And I can't tell you, it was overwhelming because there was like 40 people sitting in the waiting room waiting for us that had just gotten it by the grapevine what had happened. Most of them were from our church, but there was people like my oldest daughter's ex-boyfriend's parents were there because he was really close with my husband. And I just remember walking down the hallway, and it was a long, narrow hallway. And then there was this huge waiting room for the neural section of the hospital, and it was packed at midnight. So that started it. And then it was the wildest thing. And like we've discussed this in our Mad Widows group, the people that we thought were going to be there sometimes didn't. And the people who I never expected to be there, random strangers, came out of the woodwork and helped me in moments. Sometimes there's been people that have been there since the get-go, and they're still with me that I was an acquaintance with, but now we're friends. And then there was people who just came in for a moment and helped me connect somehow to something that was needed. And unfortunately, I would like to say my family's been there, but my family couldn't handle it. So my family has kind of disappeared, which is unfortunate. But the other thing is I was introduced to MAD through a lady who lost her husband. He was a police officer in Ottawa and he was murdered. She got me in touch with MAD because she worked with my husband. And since then, I've been in touch with this wonderful group of ladies who we've all lost our husbands. And we meet once a month on Zoom. And I have to say that they have been very much my lifeline outside of my own kids and some really close friends that we have as adopted family now.
Nice. And Dean and Kim, I know for many folks here, making sure that their child or the loved one is not forgotten is really important. Finding ways to honor them is a large part of what we discuss. I know you guys have done a lot to make sure that DJ is not forgotten. Maybe you want to tell folks a little bit about the different initiatives you've been involved with.
No.
So, well, probably about 2 months after DJ passed, someone approached us to possibly do a splash pad in DJ's memory. At the time, we were still very much in shock and very maybe out of it. But anyway, we agreed to it and took us 2 years. We raised over $250,000 doing golf tournaments and different fundraisers, and built the park in DJ's honor, and it's now the DJ Hancock Memorial Splash Pad in Sudbury. And it was really awesome. As much as it was within the first 2 years and we were kind of still a little bit gray, it probably helped us through that first 2 years, just being so busy, you know, between having to be at these functions and everything else. But now Dean and I will a lot of times just go to the splash pad and have a coffee and watch the kids playing and just think how proud DJ would be to see all these kids playing at his park, and how proud we are to have his name living on, you know. And we have a plaque at the splash pad that tells his story, that he was killed by an impaired driver. And so that's nice, because you go there and you see a lot of people reading that story. So, you know, then they can relate, and there's a picture of DJ too, so they can put a face with the story and know that, you know, because the kids will ask, what's this all about? And, you know, so it's just another way of getting some awareness out. And his high school has also a DJ Hancock Memorial ball hockey tournament that they do once a year, and the donation comes to MAD from St. Ben's High School in Sudbury. The kids all donate whatever, $2 for the tournament or something, but it's very nice, and it makes us feel good that, you know, our son's name is still around and people know of DJ and he's not forgotten, which as a parent I think is very important. Because he was a human being and he did exist for 18 years, you know, and he's a big part of our lives still, even though he's not physically here. So.
Yeah, I just want to say through the whole thing that our daughter's been our rock.
There you go.
Okay. Yep. She's kind of been our rock the last couple of years too.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. So a question for all of you, because I know, Alyssa, you dealt with injuries, and Cheryl, you know, supporting Danica, but you all lost someone, and I want to be careful how I ask this question because we don't talk about closure here, but we know that it's an ongoing thing. But so not talking about closure, but have you been able to find some joy and happiness again in your life? Not to say that you wouldn't want to have your loved one back, but have you been able to find that? We have some folks probably here who are in some pretty dark days that may not see a light at the end of the tunnel, but could you talk a little bit about that? When we start with you, Alyssa, and maybe share a bit about what surprised you about that.
Yeah, I think for me, especially right after the crash, and even the months, years following, I almost found a sense of, I feel guilty when I found joy, and I found that a little bit tricky to navigate with. But what I had actually, one of my mentors from dance was sharing with me was that those moments of joy when you feel like maybe part of you feels like you shouldn't be feeling that joy, to take that joy and look at it from your loved one's perspective, and that they would want you to relish in that joy and take that joy and hold on to it. So I think that's something that I've been trying to work with, and that really helped me, especially in those first couple years, was just when I had that feeling of, oh, maybe I shouldn't be feeling this joy because I'm also not joyful about this other part of my life. Just taking that and looking at it from my dad's perspective, and like knowing that he would want me to have that joy and he would want me to live in that joy. Yeah.
Pretty wise advice you received.
Yeah.
Cohen?
Yeah, I mean, definitely for the first few years, like as I said there, yeah, my compass in life was just completely flipped upside down. All my goals and motivations have been changed. You know, it was very hard to find joy in the things that I had always found joy in. And my career aspirations and goals were just, I just started to think like, what's the point of doing this, of becoming an engineer? I don't feel like I can give back in the way that I would like to with this career. So ultimately I switched careers to teaching, where I work with kids and share the story of what happened to James with them. And the fulfillment that I've gained from that has been incredible. I think someone said something today in our session kind of stuck with me, and I'd like to share it here. They said that if the roles were reversed and it had been you that passed or was injured and not your loved one, how would you want them to carry on living their life, right, without you? So yeah, that stuck with me, and I think that philosophy, I've kind of adopted that. Through the first few years, it was very tough. But as the years progressed, I definitely was able to find joy again, doing things that made me feel connected to James. Yeah, it is a great way to experience that joy in life.
Sure.
Very similar to these guys, trying to find joy. I felt hugely guilty. I got joy from seeing my daughter advance in ways that I was told she never would. But I also have, just probably in the last year, I would say, started finding ways to celebrate my husband and carry him with me. So of course we were almost empty nesters at this point. Danica was just finishing up her second year of college. She had one more year to go. Our other daughter was already out of the house and finishing up she just graduated from nursing at the time of the crash. So we were empty nesters, and we had all these plans to go traveling and be there for our aging parents and, you know, just have fun. So I started doing things that so we have vacations that we've had kind of planned. So I'm starting to take a few of those every once in a while. So like I just this past January got to go on the largest cruise ship in the Royal Caribbean's fleet. And that was something that my husband and I want to do. And I actually did a zip line across the ship, which my husband and I had talked about doing because we were looking at all the things that were on the ship. So I'm trying to do things like that. And then the other thing that I did, and actually I drove from Ottawa today, and what I drove in was a dream of ours. We wanted a little convertible that we could go and do some fun road trips with. And actually, when I'm driving that, I find joy in the fact that I think I picture him sitting beside me. And I feel like sometimes he is right there beside me, laughing at me, or, you know, telling me to pick the right song or whatever. But it's the little things too, like we love checking out sunsets. So I often take pictures of sunsets and spend moments out on my front porch watching the sun go down. He wasn't much of a gardener, but he hated gardening. I took his work boots that he used to always wear when he was gardening, and I made planters out of them. So I'm doing little things to bring him back into my life and hopefully celebrate him. I know he hates that one, but you just have to find the small things, and little by little, it starts bringing the joy back in, and the guilt subsides.
Dean and Kim.
You or me?
I a lot of the things that I used to do in my life, of course, it just went away and you didn't feel like doing anything. And as time goes on, you sort of find a little bit of joy in them. And when you do, it doesn't last forever. So when you do find that little bit of joy, just run with it and do what you're doing. And the next day, see what happens. And it's up and down. It's like a roller coaster all the time. It'll be 9 years this summer, but you know, there's not a day that goes by that you wake up and don't think about it. So you just got to look at the happy things in life, because we're still here and we still have our daughter and different things like that. And like I say, when you do feel good, run with it. That's about it.
And we suffer from PTSD because of the fact that we were there. So like he said, we're up and down, you know. So, you know, if he says to me after supper, let's go for a ride or go in our pontoon boat or something, you know, you run with it. Okay, we're both feeling good tonight, so let's do this or that or whatever. And, you know, if you are having maybe a little bit of fun or a lot of fun, whatever it might be, again, you think they wouldn't want us sitting at the table crying for the rest of our lives. Like DJ was a happy-go-lucky guy. Everybody loved DJ. So I try and hold on to that he would want us to keep living. And of course, Jamie brings us all kinds of joy, and maybe we'll have some grandbabies one day. Sorry, Jamie, I had to throw that in.
No pressure though. No pressure. So Cheryl, I think we've talked a bit about this in the past. You know, you were not only dealing with the loss of your husband, but I mean, Danica requires so much of your effort and time. I don't know if I'm wording this right. How did you find time to grieve? Or did you have time to grieve?
No, I haven't. I feel like I've stuck down, and I am in some counseling now that is helping me bring some of it up. But honestly, it's been 7 years, and I've been mama bear for 7 years. I've had to advocate like crazy for my daughter because they wrote her off very quickly. Even with the advances she's doing now, we still struggle to find help. This world is not made for somebody who needs intensive rehab, especially Ottawa, which is sad. But grieving, no, I have little blips, I guess you'd call it. So like a song will come on that will make me bawl my eyes out. Or I will get the smell of a cigar that my neighbor smokes, and my husband we used to sit on the front porch, me with my glass of wine, him with his whiskey, and we used to share a cigar. And things like that would bring out the grief. Yeah, I honestly don't feel like I've had the opportunity to fully grieve. And then of course there's helping my daughter grieve too, because she missed his service. She missed, like, I mean, consciously, I don't think she doesn't remember much of any time of her time in the hospital. So there's a lot that she needs to bring up and go through, because it's like a blur to her. She doesn't remember it. So you're trying to advocate and help her. And as a parent, you tend to put your feelings in the back seat and wait until you can have that time to do it, which still working on it.
And you mentioned the support group that you're part of, that core group of
Yes, our
ladies.
bad widows, I call them.
Has that been helpful? And
They have been very helpful. Something that was said earlier, and we were discussing it earlier today too. You feel like we said, an alien. And people are always trying to fix you. They don't want you to be in pain. They don't want you to hurt. And some of the funniest things can come out of someone trying to fix you. Things that are said, and I wave them off. But this group, we can laugh together, cry together, be there not only to support each other through our grief walk, but through life, because there's other things happening in our lives. And like Nancy, our facilitator, has almost the identical story. Well, does have the identical story, in the sense that she lost her husband and her daughter was badly injured as well. So just having that connection with somebody who understands you can't be fixed. You just have to be supported.
right. Alyssa, I mean, obviously you and your siblings lost your dad and uncle, your mom lost her husband and brother-in-law, but you were also dealing with injuries. How did you juggle healing yourself, but also I'm sure you didn't want to burden your mom, you're trying to protect your siblings. How did you juggle all of that?
Yeah, I think I was almost fortunate in the fact that my grieving process, I had so much going on. I was in my grade 12 year, I was still training at the studio 25 to 30 hours a week. So I think with my grieving process, I was able to, in some degree, compartmentalize. And when I went to school, I was a student and I was nothing more than that. And when I went to the studio, I was a dancer and I left it at that. And then when I went home, then I would have a chance to just process and grieve for my dad and uncle, and also taking the time to heal myself from my own injuries. But I feel like being able to have normalcy in my life at school and in the studio then made it when I came home, then I could grieve there. And I feel like that in a way was helpful, being able to have just some normalcy in my life. I mean, I stayed and I finished my grade 12 year, and I didn't let that impact my attendance, and same with my dance training. Even though I wasn't training physically, I was going into support and I was going into assistant teach. So even taking on other roles as mentors to younger students, I found that helped, like, keeping normalcy.
And Cheryl mentioned the challenges in the healthcare system and advocating. Did you find you had the supports to get well?
Yes, again, I think I was very fortunate in being in the dance. There's such a high knowledge and degree of understanding of physical injuries and bodies, and what a rehabilitation process needs to look like in order to get back to your 100%. So being surrounded by teachers and mentors and specialists who knew dance and who knew bodies, and who knew exactly what steps I needed to take, I felt very supported. Just being already in a community that understood what was needed for a body to go from broken to healed.
Colin, I don't want to presume what your journey was, but I know we've heard from other people who've lost a sibling that sometimes you are so concerned about your parent that you maybe don't want to burden them. Was that something you went through? You wanted to protect your mom? And
Yeah. Similar to Alyssa, I was very involved and enrolled in a degree program. I was given a week off of school, and I missed midterm week. And when I came back, my professors, some of them were very accepting and others were really not accepting, or needed to see a obituary of James. And it was tough. And yeah, I mean, as a sibling, they say when you lose a sibling, you lose your parents too. And for the first few years, it was hard for us, right? We faced a lot of challenges with our communication and setting boundaries and things like that. And I'm just so happy that, 7 years later, we're here today together. And when we were invited to the conference and I was invited to sit on the panel, I was excited to travel alone with my mom. Again, for years that was not the case. And similar story with my father as well. So, yeah.
I don't know if you've met Deborah. She's slightly proud of her children, and obviously with good reason. But we were really glad that you were able to come and see go. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to make the presentation too, that you could both be here. So that's great. Cheryl, maybe just I meant to ask you too. You talked a little bit about the healthcare system, and maybe just talk a little bit about that. How much you had to advocate for Danica.
Yeah, so Danica has healed from all of her broken bones and cracked pelvis and all that. The biggest thing is the brain injury. What I'm struggling to find is she's falling into a gray area. So she's not physically able to look after herself completely. And because of that, she can't be taken into a lot of day programs. Rehabilitation kept telling me, the rehabilitation center at the Ottawa General said, she needs to be oriented. She needs to know the day, even if she can't talk, if she can like indicate somehow, eyes, thumbs. And that's how she started. She started with one blink was yes, two blinks was no. Then she started with she made this up. Yes, no, maybe, and hell no. That was her thing. And so, you know, we're showing them this. We're showing that she understands, she's responding to things, and yet she didn't fit into their parameters. So because she was farther out when this happened, she was like 2 years out, and they usually deal with people first thing afterwards, like within a few months. The neat thing is the doctor who is the head of the rehab facility there, he wrote her off August of 2016, said she was never going to amount to anything more than what we had in front of us, which wasn't much. Since then, I kept harassing them and bringing it back to them. And that doctor is still following my girl 7 years later, except he says that the program, she's beyond the program now. But it's hard to find support through the community. We have such a problem with our community care, with different people showing up, and with a brain injury, you have to have constant. New people causes anxiety in her. And then of course she has to teach people all over again how to take care of her, and they don't get it. And so that causes more tension with her. And right now, like I said, the day programs, because she can't physically look after herself, they won't take her. And what she really needs now to boost her confidence and get her back on her feet is social interaction, which all her friends are gone. She has a few people who, like I have a magnificent young lady that's with her this weekend, who comes in, and they have just bonded together, and she has been an absolute inspiration to both myself and Danica. Danica was like, okay, Mom, you can go this morning because Megan's coming. But Megan also has taught her how to get back into society, because that's another thing. With a brain injury, people don't know how to respond, because sometimes, like, you know, I moved this candy dish here and she wanted it here. That can cause a huge uprising in her emotional and verbal state. And then, you know, that causes her to feel anxious, and then she lashes out, and people don't know how to deal with that. The young lady that I'm talking about that's with her is actually, she works with autistic children. And I see the similarities in between, like how to work with someone who is autistic as well as someone who has a brain injury. And I think that's what makes her one of those exceptional people that we have in our life. But outside of that, so this is last May, I had taken her home to see my mom, because that was the first time she saw my mom in years. My mom can't travel anymore. And I pulled my back out by taking her to a hotel room where the beds are higher, and, you know, the toilets aren't in the right place and all that. And I was literally crawling along on the floor asking for help. And I was told that the only respite that they had for a brain injury was in Mississauga. So 4.5, 5 hours away, I had to drive her. I was supposed to drive her here, drop her off, drive back to Ottawa, rest for the week, and then drive back again and pick her up, and then drive back home again with a bad back. So I ended up suffering for 3 weeks with little help, and spent a lot of time in bed. And that's things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. There's just the support is not there.
Yeah, and I know there's lots of folks here who deal with their own injuries, and whether it's battling with insurance companies or the healthcare system just to find the supports they need. It's incredible what the strength that you've had for Danica and the strength that many of you have and your supports have for you. I'm going to ask all of you, and feel free to answer this if you want. If you prefer not to, then don't. But we'll start with Dean and Kim. You talked a little bit about DJ. Maybe tell us a bit more about him.
Tell you a bit more about DJ.
Yeah.
Like I say, he was a great kid. He loved hockey. His friends were amazing. We still see his friends. Pre-COVID, now it's settled down a bit, but pre-COVID, I mean, they were there once a month, and you know, they'd call us and say, okay, we're bringing pizza, and 10 of the boys would show up. And it was almost like therapy for Dean and I, and all the stories were on the table, whatever they did that maybe they shouldn't have done. It was all on the table, but it was just, they loved DJ. They still talk about DJ. He was just one of those kids that everybody liked. But my mother's fiance at the time, he used to say, DJ was the quietest kid at home. Like if DJ was home, he was in his room and I wouldn't even know he was there, or he was downstairs watching TV, just quiet. And I remember times I'd say to Dean, like, shouldn't he be out with his friends, or, you know, like, but he was just that kid. And then you put a pair of skates on him, and Ron would say it's like Jekyll and Hyde, because he'd get on the ice and he was the playmaker, and he was the guy getting the penalty or scoring the goals, always chirping. But people loved him. I have to say, like, his teachers at school, like, he was like the class clown, and always was, like, right from JK, I think. He was just that kid that everybody loved and always had a smile on his face. And there was one girl that actually came to the funeral. I'll never forget her. She was, I think maybe she had something wrong with her, whether it be autistic. I don't know exactly, but, and she was a chunkier girl, but she said, I took the bus to come to this funeral and see you, because she said DJ was the only boy in high school that would say hi to me in the hallways. So that's just the kind of kid he was. He was just an amazing kid, I have to say.
Do you want to add anything, Dean?
Yeah, you heard about Danica, and my other half is Troy. Troy was my music man. He lived, slept, breathed, ate music. Like, you know, it was just his life. It helped him through some very tough teenage years. But he also, like, we had standing room only at his service, and people just wrote, like, he was working at Canada Mortgage and Housing at the time. He had been there 17 years. And I got this beautiful photo album that they did, a scrapbook album. And the notes that were in there it was just overwhelming how much he was loved and how much he made a difference in people's lives. I've even had people come to, because we occasionally have events to try and raise some money to help offset the huge cost of rehabilitation. And I remember one lady came, and of course I didn't know everybody he worked with. It was a big corporation. And I said, so when did you work with my husband? You know, were you in his department? And she's like, oh no, we just met in the hallway and we'd stop and chat. And that was the type of guy he was. I remember we were in California and these young ladies were having a tire problem, and he says to me, move the car, I'm going to go over and help these ladies. And went over and did the tire, pumped up the tire, because they had no clue how to pump up a tire. He pumped up the tire for them. They offered him money, and he's like, are you kidding me? Like, no, you know, just, he was there. He was always like, for me, he was my everything, because we were married almost 24 years. We had been together 28. He still held my hand. He still opened the door for me. He still, he talked about us all the time, because that was one of the big things that was in the scrapbook, was how they knew our family. Someone else had said that, how they knew our family from what he said, because he would always talk about his girls. And we often said, I used to call him my alien because I said, there's no man out there like this because you're weird. Where did you come from? But he treated me like the queen and he treated his girls like princesses. And they still talk about that and how much they miss that one-on-one time that they had with him.
Cohen?
Yeah. James, he was my best friend. He was kind of funny without like intending to be funny. All of the time. He had so many friends. He was really social. He was someone who would meet someone new, quickly get to understand them, and they would just become the best of friends, right? He was able to connect with people so easily, so well. He loved sports. He loved video games. He loved hiking. He loved camping. He loved being outdoors. He loved his partner, Carolyn, who he left behind. They were together for 4 years. Yeah, he was just our joy. He was a protector. He was my younger brother, but he really protected me, stuck his neck out for me a lot. I dealt with a lot of bullying in high school and things like that, and James was there for me throughout it all. My friends were sort of his friends. Yeah, he touched the lives of so many people in a positive way. I saying in the session earlier today, I get messages every now and then from people who I didn't even really know that were that close to James, and they'll message me saying that they're thinking about our family or they want to get a tattoo in honor of James. And what, do they have my blessing for it? And, or would they, do they want some input or something like that? So yeah, I mean, he was just amazing, an amazing person. So glad to have had the time that I did have with him, and pretty torn up over not, getting those milestones, reaching those milestones with my brother for the rest of my life, obviously. Yeah.
Melissa?
Yeah, my dad, Mike Krieger, he was just an incredible person. He was the most hardworking and most supportive father. I'm one of 5 kids, and we were all involved in extracurriculars, whether it be dance or music, or sports or acting or singing. And he made time to come to every single recital, every single performance. He tried to be there, and he was always so proud of myself and all my siblings. He was also such an outdoorsy guy. He loved boating and he loved fishing. He loved dirt biking, snowmobiling, anything outside. He loved, and he loved taking his joy that he got from doing those things and sharing it with myself and my siblings. And so he was always teaching us archery and teaching us how to fish and teaching us how to ride the snowmobiles or the dirt bikes. And he just always wanted to have an adventure outside, and he loved just spending the weekend camping, and taking all 5 of us kids with him and just squishing us into a tent, or making us walk through bushes with bears, and always always fun with him. And then my uncle Mark, him and my dad were together always. They did everything together from when they were little up until the day that they passed away. They were together. When they were younger, all the stories we've heard, they were just the mischief makers, and they'd go bother a beehive and then shove one of their other brothers into it, or always making mischief, kind of like a class clown. And my uncle, he was not married. I didn't have any kids, but he was kind of like a second father to us. And he was always volunteering his time to help out with our family, and always volunteering to go help out at the farm, and just offering his time to whoever needed it without any expectation of anything in return. Yeah, they were both incredible people.
Sound like it. So I have one last question for all of you, and then as part of this, if there's something you would like to share with the group that I haven't asked, please feel free to do so. But maybe we'll start with Dean and Kim. You walked in the door, 6, 7 years ago. there's a lot of people who've walked in for the first time. What advice would you give folks who may be a little unsure of what to expect for the weekend? Any thoughts to share, or and then anything else that you'd like to share that maybe we haven't talked about?
Just talk to a lot of people while you're here, make some contacts, get some phone numbers. You know, like there's a lot of people that have been in your shoes, and I know how you feel right now. It's terrible for sure, but it does get easier as the days and years go on. So just I don't know, just talk to a lot of people. I still remember the first time. It's still a blur, like, you know. And then being here tonight is even hard, but it does get easier.
Yeah, talk to, like Dean said, probably talking to people, sharing your story. Like my mom will say to me sometimes, she'll say, like, Kim, like, does it make you like depressed when you go to these mad things? And is it hard on you? And I say, it's hard on us, but it's also a type of therapy at the same time, because you're talking to people that, have lost either a son or a daughter or a father or mother or whatever. And they can kind of relate to, the impact that impaired driving has on everybody. Our stories are all a little different, but it's still nice to hear other people's stories. And when you tell your story, they're listening to you. They get it. Like it's not like talking to a stranger on the street who's never been impacted by impaired driving or whatever. It just, I don't know, there's some type of a therapy there, just being able to openly tell your story, and it helps. It really does. So share your stories and talk to people, and, don't be scared to cry. Don't be scared to laugh. Like, just be yourself. And I mean, that's really all you can do.
I think our first time here, my eldest daughter and I were here, I think in 2017, it might have been 2018, but I can't remember. But the weekend blew us away. We went home and literally it took me over a week to kind of recover. She's never been back because she said it's just too emotional for me. But the thing that I came away with from the first and the second time that I was here, so this is my third time, I'm not alone. Everybody out there understands, like you said, but I don't feel as lonely because my friends don't get it. My parents didn't get it. My brothers and sister didn't get it, so I felt very contained in how much I spoke and how much I showed to those that I thought could handle it. Whereas here, I did not feel that. And the other thing that I would say as a piece of advice is just be gentle with yourself. Take time if you need it. And like you said, cry, laugh, don't feel any kind of guilt. If I can suggest that, I would suggest just live in the moment and be gentle with yourself.
So I've got two things, I guess. One thing I've kind of been thinking about in the weeks leading up to the conference was in the first few years, there was a lot of within my family and just within the community, I guess, grief comparison, I guess, comparing a loss of someone to the loss of someone to your experience to their experience, and so on and so forth. And I would just advise everyone to stay away from that as best as possible, because I really think that your biggest loss is your biggest loss uniquely, and the fact of the matter is that we're all here because we either lost someone or lost some portion of our life, whether it be ability or anything like that. So yeah, we all have that shared bond. And that's what really matters. And the second thing I'd like to share, my sister asked me to share this, my sister Carolyn. So immediately after the accident, she and Kaylin, James's partner, they started the James Daniel Poirier Memorial Basketball Tournament. They did all this amazing stuff in James's honor and his name. And you might hear, if it's fresh for you still, you might hear a lot of stories, and you might be wondering, what can you do, to honor your loved one? And I just want to say, like, you don't have to do a friggin' thing, right? Like, if all you can do is live your life the best you can, as they would have wanted you to live it, that's enough, right? Like, you're validated in that. So yeah, that's what I'd like to share.
Good advice.
Yeah, this is my third year at the conference, or third time at the conference. And I remember the first time walking in and just feeling so overwhelmed and just feeling so many emotions that I didn't know what I was even feeling. And I think something that I really took away that I would share as advice is that you don't have to share in order to get something out of the weekend. And that listening to other people's stories can be just as helpful and give you just as much validation as sharing your own story. I know the first time I came, I barely said a word, was in the youth group, and I don't think I said more than 5 words. But I think listening to everyone else's stories and just hearing the commonality between all of them, and just kind of recognizing that commonality is the strength between all those stories. And as was said before, we come to this conference and we're no longer alone, and you have people who understand what you've gone through and what you're still going through. And it's always so unique to see you have people who come 8 months after versus someone who's been, it's 10 months or 10 years later. And just seeing how, like, you can see that there is somewhere to go, and that you can kind of hear their journeys as well. But yeah, I'd say being patient and kind to yourself, and just allowing yourself to take what you need from the weekend.
It's great advice from all of you. So this is the end of the program. So you please join me in thanking our panel for such amazing. So please remember that our social center is open. So if you want to connect with folks, get a pop, feel free to do so. It's been a long day, so if you're tired and you're worn out, that's fine too. This is the part of the session where I'm supposed to say, have a good evening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. I actually won't be here tomorrow. And I struggled with the decision to tell you why, because I don't want to make this somehow about me, but a good friend suggested that I should. So on Good Friday, I was involved in a crash with my mom. We were driving to go pick up my daughter from school to bring her home for the Easter weekend. We were on the 401 highway, and a tractor trailer going westbound. We were going westbound, the tractor trailer coming eastbound. Lost control and came across the median into our lane. And I walked away with a relatively minor fracture in my spine. I listened to you, Alyssa, talk about doing dance with your injuries, and I mean, I laid around for about 2 or 3 weeks. So amazing. My mom suffered much more serious injuries, and we lost her 2 days later. So tomorrow we're doing her celebration of life. And so there's not very many reasons that I wouldn't be here for this weekend. This is the most important thing that MAD Canada does. It's something that I know for our staff and board of directors, it inspires us and sort of repowers us to keep going and doing the work that we're doing. And so it's the first time in about a decade that I haven't been here. And I just wanted you all to know that I would not be here. There's not very many reasons I wouldn't be here with you for this weekend, but I know you're in good hands. As the folks said, lean on each other. We have VSVs who are phenomenal. We have staff. Ask questions, ask for support if you need it. Take what you can from the weekend. Meet the people that you need to meet. You'll make connections here that'll last you a lifetime. I've seen the friendships that have grown. So I hope this weekend gives you some comfort. We don't solve your problems, but I hope that we give you a space to discuss with others and make connections that you can begin to carry those relationships on in your own journey. So I hope to see some of you soon, but for the rest of you, please enjoy the weekend and know that when the weekend's over, we're still here as an organization for you. So we'll close that out. Have a good evening and have a great weekend.
It's a wonderful, wonderful life.